All right. Good morning. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for jumping on with us today for this episode where we will be focusing on the value of working a patch and how to choose one with the highest chance of success. So let's jump straight in. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Shontelle. I'm the founder and director at Client Collective. So Client Collective is an Australian-based outbound prospecting service for real estate agents. All of our team are based locally. We've got clients across Australia and New Zealand. We look after any type of call you can think of. So your just listed, just sold, anniversary calls. We love client nurturing and our ongoing client communication. And that's really where our, core service and main passion is, but any other type of call you can think of as well. And I'm really interested as well in database efficiency. And the reason for that is you can just get so much more value from your database when it's clean, efficient, and running how we really want it to. And last year, our team were superstars and generated over $19 million in commission for our clients. So that's enough about us. Today's not a sales pitch. It's really about helping you guys, obviously, how to get the most value out of your database. But the core target that we're focusing on today is the value of working a patch or a farm area, a core area, and how to do it. So in our last episode, we covered the why and how of databasing. And basically, we wanted to look at why databasing takes the luck out of getting listings and how to implement it within your own business. So why it works, obviously how to implement it, like I just said, what dirty data is compared to a clean database, how to build trust with our clients. Super, super important. We'll touch on that today. The daily activities to do within your database and within your pipeline, some scripts and dialogues. We looked at how many calls you needed to make per week, per month, a bunch of different call types that you could be doing to your database as well. So if you do want to see and catch up on that last episode, please check it out at clientcollective.com.au/learn. There's a heap of resources there. We've got some training videos as well. So jump in and have a look. All right. So getting into today's topic, the why and how, the value of working a patch. Today we really want to zoom in and really focus on why should we be putting all of our value into working a core suburb. Now, the reason I wanted to touch on this today is that I'm meeting with agents every day, every week. And a lot of the time, the agents that I'm meeting are saying that they'll sell anywhere and they don't really have a core suburb that they work with. And of course, we'll sell anywhere. I mean, commission's commission, sales is sales. But there is a huge, huge amount of value in working one core area. And that's what I really want to jump into today. So we're going to cover it in two sections. Why should we do it? And the benefit that, and then how do we do it? And in the second section, we're really going to jump into the nitty-gritty details. It's going to be more of a workshop style, attack at how to really do it, looking at the reports that you can access through different vehicles like Price Finder, for example, or RP Data, how to compare that through using tables and that kind of thing. So although the numbers part probably isn't for everybody, I highly recommend staying around. Like I say, I'm going to show you exactly how to dive deep on what area to focus on. And taking the luck out of which area to use. So, we're investing so much of ourselves into our marketing every time, every day, every time we pick up the phone, every time we're doing a letterbox drop, our new listings and our listing activities around our new listings. So making sure that's really beneficial. So we're going to jump in and have a look at that and guarantee us the highest chance of success. All right. So the first thing I wanted to touch on, and we did touch on this in our last webinar and podcast episode, is our number one goal. So anything to do with databasing, our marketing, it's all just around building trust with our clients. Now, we do that through regular, consistent communication to the same people over and over. Again, I went into a lot of detail around that in our databasing episode talking about how to do that with our database clients. And essentially database clients are going to be people that live in our core area. But today we're going to look at that patch and I guess dive deep on how do we build trust with them in that sort of sense, looking at it geographically. So as you can see, number one goal, and I really want you guys to focus on this, is to build trust with clients in the marketplace. Now, how do we do that? We do it with consistency, because consistency builds familiarity and familiarity builds trust. So consistent communication to clients, consistent marketing, consistent everything, regular and consistent. When we're looking at people in the marketplace and their plans and their projections to sell and that type of thing, there's lots of data around how many touch points that we need to have with our marketplace. And typically it sits between 7 and 12 touch points that we really want to build with them. However, the thing with our clients being people that are thinking of selling is that we don't know when they're thinking of selling. So we can't just make 7 to 12 touch points once and then stop, because we lose the trust that we've built and they no longer know that we're relevant to them. So we need to do that consistently throughout the year in and year out, for the time that when it does come, you're their agent, you're their expert, and you've built that trust up with them. So trust is giving people the confidence to make the decision that you're the right agent for them. It's not built through telling clients once about one record sale. It's built, like I say, by consistently proving that you're the best in the area, and not just at selling homes. You want to really prove to them that you're the best at interacting with people. You're the best at building relationships. You're the best at getting the most out of the buyers. And you want to prove your value through building that relationship with them and building trust. They want to know you, they want to like you, and they can't do it if they don't see you and hear from you and your brand consistently. So the bottom line is that having that consistent approach enables you, having that core area enables you to efficiently and repeatedly market yourself to the same people across multiple channels. So what I mean by that is, let's have a look at a patch here for an example. So when we're looking at this patch, and we're fortunate enough in our line of work that we know exactly where our clients live. So when we're looking at this patch here, as an example, we can, the touch points here are huge, almost unlimited. We can DL them, we can send them letterbox, direct mail in the letterbox. You can see that you might have your for sale signboards up around the area. So as they're driving through the suburb, they're seeing your name, they're seeing your brand, they're getting your information in the letterbox, they're getting your marketing at the local footy club, they're seeing your billboards, they're seeing your bus stops. So geographically, it's so much easier to market to than if we're looking at a wide region. It's, they're getting a much more watered down version of you. And on top of this, then we're also adding in your quarterly phone communication, your just listed calls, your open home invites, your Facebook marketing. So a really great tool is loading your database and building your database with clients that live locally, loading that into your socials, into Facebook, and then remarketing to them. And obviously through Instagram, paid ads, the list goes on, text messaging, door knocking, all of it. But when we're looking at it in a small area, like, say, for example, this suburb here, we can, set a plan up to door knock the entire area in a year, or to ensure that our phone calls are happening quarterly and that they're coming, at a time that follows a market report, for example, so that we can say, hey, did you receive that? What were your thoughts on that? And really make the most of following up on it. When we're looking at a huge area or a region, the north side, for example, or eastern suburbs, it's just so much harder to have that approach where we can have those multiple layers of marketing targeting the same people over and over and over. And we're all familiar with it, and we see it in our day-to-day. If we see a brand once or twice, or we hear about something great that they've done once, well, that's awesome. But we really need that repeated communication and repeated evidence to prove that they are, time and again, the best choice, and that they're still there. And even, to be honest, just to remember them when we're in a market that's so full of options, and so full of information, we really need to ensure that we're at top of mind. And we can do this by layering our marketing, and so much easier in a patch like this. So what else? I'll just check my notes here. So yeah, the other thing is, I guess, it's difficult and it's expensive to coordinate marketing to a much larger area. When we're looking at a small patch like this, and we know that it's got the volume to sustain us as an agent in terms of the turnover each year, it makes sense financially, it makes sense to invest in repeatedly communicating to the same people than, say, for example, letterbox dropping once when we sell a property in an area that we're not familiar with, an area that we're not as interested in selling in, that we're not doing repeated marketing. The clients there don't know that we're the agent for them. They don't know that we're the area expert. So all of this, is so beneficial to building up that relationship with your clients. And it all adds value to things like your phone calls as well, because our phone calls are amazing, and they're the personal touch that people are actually craving in a market where they're just getting bulk communicated to. But when they're just a one-off and they're not backed by other marketing and who are you and seeing you everywhere around the place, they can be lost as well, because we can't kid ourselves to think that we're the only person that's calling them, for example. So it really is important to look at it as a layered approach where we're really targeting them in their home. They're sitting on the couch, flicking through Facebook. We're in their Facebook ads. They go out and check the post. We're in the letterbox. They're driving the kids to school. There's a sold sign. There's another sold sign. Oh, we're sponsoring the footy club. All of this is adding to that brand awareness, and all of it is adding to that top of mind awareness. The other, I guess, aspect when we're looking at doing, say, the letterbox drop that I mentioned before around a just sold property in an area that we don't often service, in my view, that's just all we're doing there is crossing our fingers, and we're hoping that we stumble across somebody that's thinking of selling. But again, this is something that we covered in the last episode, but that way of doing things is really, firstly, you're relying on hope rather than on a trusted system of leads flowing into you. But you're also more likely going to be in competition with other people. You're going to look the same as the other agents because you don't have the relationship to fall on. Whereas once you've spent time investing in your marketplace, building up your presence in an area, building up your relationship through personalized communication, not just marketing, you're so far ahead of the game already, because anyone else that's coming in competition with you has to do so much more work to prove themselves. All the activities that you've done beforehand are building up that trust, building up that relationship, supplying evidence, and proving that you're the best choice for the client when the time comes. So many of our clients that we work with, they're getting called in, or we're identifying the lead, and they're not in competition, or they get somebody out for the sake of, oh, we better get someone out as a comparison. But by the time our client gets there, they've built up so much of the relationship already that the vendor is asking for their advice and they're trusting them with it. So they're saying, what marketing should I do? Yeah, well, we'll take your word for it. You're the expert. What's the best method of sale here? We'll take your word for it. We know you're the expert. We've seen all the evidence around us time and time again. So it takes the luck out of it. It takes the hope out of it. It takes the, I hope I stumble across a seller, because we've got that consistent approach, and we can then sit and the leads come to us. Or like I say, we're identifying them early through our communication. We're speaking to them quarterly. We're saying, hey, how's everything going? Did you see the one that sold around the corner from you? It was such a great result. Have you got any thoughts on doing anything? No, not for now, maybe at the end of the year. Okay, no worries. Well, obviously we'll keep in touch with you. If ever you need anything, reach out. That way you're building up your pipeline. You're ahead of the game. You're ahead of everybody else. Nobody else is, even speaking to them at that point. They've got no idea that they're thinking of doing anything. And that gives you such a great opportunity to really work with that client, build your relationship even further, and get the listing, which is the goal, right? All right. So layered marketing, we've touched on that. So obviously layered marketing is the approach of targeting clients using multiple vehicles to get your branding and message across. The approach means that we're not only keeping our brand at top of mind with quality message, we're also proving to them that we're the expert. And by implementing this as our marketing strategy, it's taking the luck out of the listing. So that's what we were talking about previously when we're looking at, you know, your DLs, all of those different activities that you could be doing. And I'll have a list of that at the end as well, so you guys can see that. Now, I'll just mention while I touch on that the slides will be available. So we'll make sure that you guys can have access to these, especially as we get into a bit more of the nitty-gritty reports, which we're about to jump into, when we're looking at which area to pick. So just keep that in mind. You can access the slides because I'm going to sort of direct you through how to access different reports. And if you do have any questions at all throughout the session, there's a Q&A button. Jump in there, chuck your questions in there and I can answer it for you. This will be available again as well. So if you do know anyone that you want to share this information through to, the webinar is being recorded, as you know, so we'll be able to share that off to them. But let's get into the nitty-gritties of how to pick an area. We know why. So let's jump into how. Mr. Bean, I love this one. So now we know why, but how do we choose one? So today, like I say, I'm going to guide you through step by step on how to audit your options and ultimately what to look for when you're trying to break into a new suburb. So often when we start in an office, and this has certainly been my experience previously, we're either asked, what area do you want to go for? Or we've given an option. So this area is free. This is a farm area that's free that you can target. Or sometimes we might pick, say, for example, where we live or where we grew up. We know lots of people there. We're familiar with it. So we think that's, you know, going to work for us, and it absolutely may work for us. But we really do want to have a look at the numbers and check, is this a viable area for us to work? Do I have a good chance of success in this area, or am I setting myself up for failure with my competition? There's lots of different factors that we really do want to consider. And again, it's all about taking the luck out of it and setting ourselves up for as much success as we can have, by really having a look at what's the best one to go for. And it could be that you're starting new at a business, or it could be that you're looking to grow into another area. You want to expand your market. Your team might have grown and you're able to take on more and service more clients. And this is really, really important in that, because you don't want to put all your hard work to waste, or make your job any harder than it needs to be. So let's have a look. So for our podcast listeners, if you are driving or making dinner or lunch, you might have to come back to this. Or you might like to reference some of the material in the show notes, because there is some visuals here. I'm going to try and explain it as best as I can. But yeah, we'll make sure we link everything so you can access it. And like I say, it's going to be a bit of a workshop style so that you can, you know, go away from this session, put it into place in your own business. And we will be sharing the slides, just a little reminder about that too. So first step, how to decide which area to target. Step number one is make a list of all your options. So that's as simple as it is. Make a list of all the suburbs that you are considering. And it might not be a suburb. It might be LGA, local government area, or it could be estates. It could be, I know there are some agents that we work with that look after, you know, a stretch along the waterfront, or a rural area, or a rural part of a suburb. So whatever you're looking at, have that clearly defined so that you know how many homes there are, and we can really look at the data on it. If it's a suburb, it's a lot easier to do the data because we're just looking at it in bulk, but you certainly can do it in smaller segments. It would just be about breaking up our CSV, which we'll jump into a little bit more. It'll be about just breaking that up by the streets that are in that area. If ever as well, you guys are in the middle of this, I'm happy to help. So just reach out anytime. So the next thing we're going to do is do the numbers on each suburb. So let's say in our example that we're going to have a look at, we've said 4 suburbs, but you might be comparing 7 suburbs or, however many. So basically we're going to do the numbers individually on each one. So what we're going to be looking at is how many properties there are in total in the suburb, average sold per year in the last 5 years. Now, 5 years is a long time. We don't ordinarily need to go to that length, and you might decide you only want to do 2 years, for example. The reason I'm recommending 5 years at the moment is just because we've had such ups and downs in the market recently. Obviously, the high highs of the market throughout COVID, and then a more stable, sometimes declining market in different areas throughout the country. So if we're looking at the last 5 years, it's going to give us a really good average. But like I say, you might decide you don't want to look at that sort of length of time. Totally up to you. We're also going to be having a look at the total number of properties currently for sale. So I haven't given you a step-by-step on that in here, but essentially go to realestate.com or domain.com, search the suburb and see how many there are. We're going to have a look at the average sale price in the suburb. And most importantly, we're going to have a look at the top agents in the suburb by market share within the past 12 months. So although we're looking at the property data for 5 years in terms of average sold per year, where we really want to focus on the last 12 months or maybe 18 months, 2 years for top agents by market share, as this can be changing within 5 years. That would have changed a lot. So I think 12 months would be absolutely sufficient to have a look at. Now, some of you might know how to access this information already through Pricefinder or RP Data, but for those that don't, there are so many reports available to access there. So like I say, I'm going to guide you through which one to jump onto and what one to use to have a look at this info. All right, the fun stuff. So as I said, I'm going to show you exactly how to get into this info yourself. And if you're a data dork like me, you're going to love it. If not, stick with it. I know it's a little daunting and maybe a little painful for some different types of us. But this will honestly, looking at the numbers will honestly save you so much time, so much money, but so much effort and energy, heartache, by really just spending a little bit of time doing this now. Honestly, I did this in an afternoon yesterday, looking at the stats. So I promise you it's really not that time consuming. And like I say, we're going to show you exactly how to do it. If you think this is just not for me, getting into all of this detail and looking at spreadsheets, get somebody in your team to do it, or worst case, reach out to us. Excuse me. And we can help you. We'll be able to sort it out for you. Like I say, we don't have to go through all 5 years. So the first step, go to Pricefinder or RP Data, whichever you use. This one here that we've worked off is on Pricefinder. That's the service that we use, or we use the most. But if yours is RP Data, there will be a report for you as well. So on Pricefinder, on the dashboard, the first thing we're going to look up is the list of sales in the past 5 years. So when we go in there, we're going to click into the market activity tab, enter the suburb name, and then click search. It's as simple as that, the first part. Once that populates, excuse me, we can then tick, there's a bunch of different check boxes that you can, advanced filters. So there's different check boxes, dates and things like that. Most of them we're going to leave. But what you do want to do is tick to include relevant sales, display results, and then untick all others. So we don't want to include non-related parties. We don't want to include agents' advice. Those are obviously for the more recent sales and not always accurate. And then we just want to change the date to include the last 5 years, and then click search. Now, when that populates, on the right-hand side, there's a little button that says print page and export options. And if you click that, you can export it to Excel. All right. Oh, we got it twice there. So once the Excel has downloaded onto your PC, open it up and what we want to do is we're going to have a look. I've got a short video, so I will show you that. But what we're going to do is have a look at how many total sales there've been in the past 5 years in that suburb. So obviously this is only for the first suburb that we're talking about right now. And this step will need to be done for each suburb. So do it one at a time so it's not too overwhelming. So we want to look at how many total sales there are in the last 5 years and dividing it by 5 to get an average per year. How many sales per agent there have been this year. And if you want to as well, you might want to look at how many sales per agency this year. So I will, essentially it's the same process and it comes out in the same report. But the reason I say that is in some areas, there might be not one dominant agent, but the agency itself is really dominant. So sometimes it could be good to have a look at that as well. You'll know that for your area. And if you don't know it, then it's worth doing it, because if one agency is holding all the market share, essentially the reason that we want to look at this at all is that if one agent or one agency has got super high market share in an area, it's harder to break into, much harder. Whereas if it's spread across a bunch of different agents, or, say 5 agents, 6 agents, however many, and it's quite even, it's a lot easier to break into that market. No one's one standout and already has the hold on that and has that relationship already built. So it's just really good and really valuable to have a look at that, because that there is going to open the door for you to be able to come in, establish yourself, build your brand, build your name, build your market presence, and dominate, nail it. All right, so let's have a look at this video. Now I'm going to explain it as we go for our podcast listeners. So this is a video of our export on Excel. And it's just an example, obviously data set here. The first thing that we're going to do is scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and look at how many total sales there have been in that period. So for this, in this example, for 5 years, there were 474 sales if we exclude the top line with the headers in it. The next thing we have just done now is added a filter to the spreadsheet. So anyone that loves a spreadsheet like me, that would be quite straightforward. But for anyone that is not familiar with spreadsheets and not living in them all the time, like us data dorks, it's really straightforward. You go data, select the top row, go to the data tab at the top or data button at the top and click create a filter. And that's going to then put these little, over here, these little triangle sort of shapes there that you can click on, and we'll be able to allow you to sort the data that's in that column, which we are going to do up here by sale date. So if you click on sale date, clear it, type the date in, and then you need to click select all, which I didn't do that first time. So you'll see it next. Clear, type the date in, and then click select all. That's going to select all records in 2022 so that we can do it year by year. So we're now going to see, if we saw A to Z by the agent's name, we can then see in alphabetical order how many listings each agent has had that year. And again, we're going to go back and do that for each year for each suburb. So that's why I say you might want to only do 2 years or something like that. So in this example, we'd then take the top 5 agents in that year and count how many listings they had within that time frame. So you can see here I've selected, and that agent had 7. There's a count at the bottom of the right hand side of the page. That agent had 7. This agent here also had 7. And then you can see there the other ones had about 3 or 4 each. And then once it gets there, I think there we go. And then you can also do that. So what I've just done on that video there is sorted then by the agency, which is right next door to it. And then we can see by agency who's got the most market share within that period. So again, you can see that agent, do the count at the bottom, they had 7. The next one had 6. The next one had 7. And that way it gives us a really good look at who's holding the market share across that time frame. So that agent there had 9. So although you can see here, although the agents within that office didn't have the top market share, the agency did. So it's worth keeping that in mind and having a look at that as well. So that's how we do that part there, and have a look at the top market share holders within the suburb. All right, now where are we going to compile this? So this is a just a template that we've created. And essentially in this template allows us to pull all that information that we've just been speaking about into one easy to look at table, and get a really good comparison of each of the suburbs and each of the agents that are holding market share to see which area is best for us to break into. So for our podcast listeners, this table is essentially a table of the results of our search. So we've got the total number of properties in each suburb, the average sold per year within the last 5 years, the percentage sold over the last 5 years, the number currently on the market. That's where I mentioned before about going to realestate.com or domain.com and having a look. The number that are currently for sale, the current average sale price. That's also available if you look at realestate.com. They've got all of those kind of stats on there. Or you can have a look, say, for example, a suburb flyout over at a price finder will give you that information. And then also we want to work out what would 10% market share at your average commission be. So I'm based in Queensland. I've based this on average locally. Obviously this varies quite a bit state to state, so you'd need to change that for your own area. And market share by number of listings, how much 10% would be, and then the top agents and the market share in the past 12 months, so that we can have a look at how many listings they had, what market share that meant that they held in that area. So if we just have a look now, I'll just point out as well what's highlighted green here. And like I say, podcast people, this template will be available for you to use and access. So the cells that are highlighted green is the information you need to input for each suburb. So if we look at suburb 1, the total properties in the suburb are 1,433. The average sold per year based on the average over the last 5 years was 66. The percentage sold on average was 4.61% of the properties turned over per year. And there were 20 properties currently for sale at the time, which was 1.4% of the total suburb home ownership or properties. And the current average sale price in that suburb was 1.14, which makes 10% market share at 2.75% just over 206,000 per year, and that would be 6.6 listings that you'd need to get to hold 10%. So why we're looking at 10% market share is that would be definitely not, I guess, our end goal, but probably our starting point goal of what we want to work to begin with in the first year of working within that marketplace. Really to have a good hold in a suburb, we definitely want to have that market share of upwards of 20%. But to begin with, go easy on yourself. We can build up to it. We'd want to be looking at in that suburb getting 6.6 listings to have 10% market share. Now, if you have a look underneath here, we've got the top agents with market share over the past 12 months. And we've got in the cell at the top here, the opposition agent's market share percentage, opposition agent name. So opposition agent number 1 had 13 listings within that 12-month period, which was 19.7% market share. And you can see opposition agent 2, 3, 4, 5 had 6 listings, 4 listings, 4 listings, and 3 listings respectively. And it's got the market share breakdown there, which range from 9% down to 4%. Now, I know all of these numbers are probably boring and overwhelming, but I promise it all will make sense why we want to have a look at this. And we go through that for each of the other suburbs here as well. So you can see suburb 2's got a much larger, it's a bigger suburb. There's 2,800 homes in that suburb. Suburb 3's got 720 odd homes, and suburb 4 is the biggest with 3,100 properties. So you can also see that the percentage sold is kind of similar along the first three suburbs, and then jumps up a little bit to 6.29% for the fourth suburb, with the other three sitting at around that 4.5% sort of mark. And you can see the number of properties currently on the market. Now, that's obviously going to vary at different peaks and, troughs throughout the market. Quieter times, there'll be less properties, but interesting stat. And then the average sale price is super important as well. So you can see here that the suburb number 1 is quite a bit higher than the other suburbs that we can see, with the last two being around that 700,000 each. The last three, around 700. So the suburb 1 is a huge amount higher value in regards to the sale price. But when we're looking at that 10% market share with the commission, it's not the highest in terms of the commission that's available with your 10% market share. So having a look at that is super interesting and really valuable. But I guess what we really want to look at more so, and the reason we want to know about what the 10% market share is because we really need to know, can we make money out of this area? Can we make enough to sustain us? Do we need to look at a bigger area? Is it more worthwhile that I look at more expensive priced homes, higher value properties, so that my commission is going to be higher? Or is it better that we look at a lower value, higher turnover, higher volume of sale, and more properties available to sell? So these are all the things that we really do want to consider when we're looking at this breakdown. And this information here in this table, excuse me, I know that the process to get here is boring and a bit painful to go through the spreadsheets and look at all the data, but this information here is so valuable to us to know how easy or difficult it's going to be to break into the suburb, and to know whether, once we've gone to all the effort of building our brand up in this suburb, whether we can actually make enough money out of it to, earn what we want to earn. So the average sale price and the commission that the 10% commission here, if we're looking at that 10% market share, 10% market share commission, that's how we know if we can and it's viable. But what we really want to look at is, what competition have we got in the suburb, and can we break in? So looking at the first suburb, what the first opposition agent here we've got has got 19% market share. So that's quite high percent market share. And they are a standout in regards to the remaining agents. The opposition agent 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all similar sort of range in terms of their market share percentage. So in this instant, that opposition agent number 1 absolutely holds the majority market share, and they've got quite a good strong grip on the market based on these numbers here. When we look at suburb number 2, you can see that the 5 opposition agent comparisons that we've got range from 9% to 3%. So there's still a bit of a drop there, but they're all somewhere around, mostly similar. They're not a huge standout. That 9% agent, if that was up, at a much higher region, like up near that 20, that would be more of a concern. But in this instance, they do have, almost double the listings to the next agent, but it's not able to be broken into, I guess. But the next suburb is interesting. We've got a lower volume of properties available. So there's only 720. It's a super small suburb. And you can see that one agent has 25% market share with 8 listings. So there's not a huge volume of sales available in this suburb. There was only 32 homes sold within the 12 months. And to get 25%, the agent only needed 8 listings. So sure, we could probably get 10% quite easily. As you can see, the next agent had 15, the one under that had 12%. But that would not be a very high volume of sales for us to sustain us. Suburb number 4 is the biggest of all the suburbs. So it's 3,100 properties in the suburb, and there were 195 on average sold. So a huge turnover in the suburb. And if we look at the opposition agents here, we've got opposition agent number 1 had 10% of the market share with 20 listings. Opposition agent number 2 had 5% with 10 listings, and then the last had 9 listings, which was about 4.5%. So the spread of market share percentage here is quite interesting, in that this top agent has got 20 listings and still only 10% market share, because it's such a high volume area. There's such a big suburb there. So there's a lot more potential. The sale price is lower, but there is a lot more potential in terms of listings. It's consistently, you could be branding, you know, suburb for expert, and it's a much larger volume of people that you could communicate to. But this is the area that I guess you would look at if you were interested in being a volume-based business, and looking at, you know, a high volume of turnover in number of sales. But it'd be, I think, in terms of the easiest to break into in this example, I would say suburb number 2 would be the easiest, as all of our opposition agents have got not a huge difference between their market share percentage, and there's not one agent that's a big standout in terms of owning that market share. But we've also got, you know, a good similar value, I guess, to the other suburbs here, and a high number of properties within the area. So not quite as high as suburb number 4, but definitely a lot easier to break into with that split there. So again, you might say, well, in this instance, you know, I want to go for that higher volume and I'm happy to compete with opposition agent number 1. But you do have to keep in mind that they held the highest market share percent with nearly, you know, 19.7%, so nearly 20% market share. And that's going to be a fight. That's going to be a fight to build your presence, build your brand, and really work to being the top agent in that area. So it's really worthwhile having a look at all this. And obviously your suburbs are going to be, you know, different results to what's shown up here, but having a look at all of those, and realizing what the different numbers mean, what the value in having that information is, it's going to be a game changer when you're looking at your different options in terms of your core areas, your patch, your farm, whatever you want to call it. So the key info that we want to get when we're looking at this table is, can I earn enough from this area? That's where we're, like I mentioned, that's where we're going to be looking at our average sale price and how much we'd be getting at the other end if we did have 10% or 20% market share, for example. Then we can set our market share goals around that figure being realistic. We don't want to go straight in and say, I'm going to have 50% market share in the next 12 months, because it's just not realistic. Can I service this area? So that's really a valuable question. So in regards to marketing, communication, etc., when we're looking at an area like suburb 2 and suburb 4, where you've got a much higher volume of properties and therefore a higher number of homeowners, and if you're looking at having that sort of volume within your database, you've got to ask yourself, how much is it going to cost me to look after this area? Is it, you know, and that's where we can get down into the nitty gritties of your budget and have a look at, you know, how much is the DLs going to be? How many direct mail am I going to send each quarter? What's my budget to service this volume of people? And can I afford that right now? Because if you can't achieve the layered approach that we were speaking about previously, you're not building trust, you're not building the relationship, you're not building your brand, you're not going to be at top of mind, and it's essentially going to be wasted money because and wasted energy, because you're just relying on hope. Then having that consistency is really, really important. That is the key to success. Consistent communication, and that's going to be across all of your marketing channels. Like I say, I'll cover that again in the next slide, but looking at all of those different options, how much can I afford to spend to look after these clients? Is that a suburb that I want to look after now? Or maybe I want to start with a smaller suburb for now and work my way to that suburb at another time. And can I somewhat easily, or with a little bit of effort, break into this area? Obviously, there's effort involved in all of this, but am I going to be coming up against, oh, we've already got an existing relationship with so-and-so, or so-and-so sold me the house, they've been here for 20 years, they sell all the houses around here, or yeah, come on out. I mean, there's not one standout agent in the area. people from all over the place sell here. So there's an opportunity there for you to build up your brand and build yourself to be seen as the expert in the area, and stand out from the other agents that are coming in, likely not local. A lot of the time in those suburbs, there's a lot of out of area agents coming in and listing one property here and there. And that's why when you look at this, you can see that the listings don't cover the entire volume of the properties sold, because there's a lot of other agents that are coming in from different areas and selling in there, but they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the buyers, for off market and all that kind of thing. So those are really the 3 key points that we want to consider when we're looking at this. All right, so in summary, when we're looking at summary part 1, the key information is having a core patch or area lets you get the maximum touch points by taking advantage of geographic marketing. So obviously, if people live wherever, we can pick up the phone and call them, but it's much more difficult to letterbox drop if they're living 10 kilometers out of the core area that you work in. So essentially, that's the bottom line when we're looking at this. It allows us to have a layered marketing approach and to take advantage of all the geographic options that we're looking at, rather than just digital, communicating with them by phone, text, and that kind of thing. And it lets clients see your brand everywhere. And it looks like you're everywhere. When they're getting your DL letterbox drops, they're getting direct mail letters, they're seeing your signboards, they're seeing your bus stops, billboards, newspaper ads, your social media marketing. And like I mentioned before, to the same clients, e-newsletters, text messaging, door knocking, and of course your phone calls, they're seeing you everywhere. You are everywhere. You're the expert. You're the best agent for them. When the time comes, you are their agent. So overall, having this approach makes marketing so much easier. Summary part 1 and part 2, take the luck out of your success by knowing your numbers. You only have to do this once. When you're looking into it, it's one time that you need to dive deep on these numbers. So set yourself time aside, have a look at it, do the work before you jump into any area that your principal said, oh, this area is free, or whatever it is, you like it because you live there. Like I say, the mums at school, you'll still get their listings. You still talk to them. They still know you're selling in locally, and you can still sell outside of the core area that you market to. But the key thing is having that patch allows you to do the layering, and knowing your numbers allows you to pick the place that's going to give you the best chance of success. All right, so that's everything from me today, you guys. This is my information. You can catch me on Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also do feel free to reach out by email, SMS, call me, whatever you want. But I did really want to just bring your attention back to our website as well. Like I say, if you jump onto clientcollective.com.au and go /learn, there are a bunch of resources there that could be really helpful for you. We're covering off a lot of things with regards to our databasing. So really looking at databasing, scripts and dialogues, all that type of thing. We are doing webinars and podcast releases every month. So our next month's webinar will be on a different topic. Like I say, last month's was on the why and how of databasing. So if you wanted to catch up on that, you can catch it on the website. It's also on our Facebook page, or sing out and we can send you a copy of it. And yeah, hopefully I've covered everything off for you guys today. I really hope it's been of value to you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for jumping on.